Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here just to do a quick video about the recent quiz, go over each item and then explain things a little bit, show you what the item analysis was, and then let you know how I'm going to move forward. Okay, so it's a simple Zoom recording video. So I'm going to share my screen. And the statistics, there we go. So overall, y'all did pretty good on this quiz. Very straightforward. Most of it was considered true false items and also multiple choice. A few items here and there were about selecting more than one option. So quickly, when we do an item analysis or any kind of item statistics on an exam or quiz, we look for both the mean, median, and mode, which is called centrals of tendency, or measures of dispersion, which is how varied are the scores in the data set. And so here, if we take a quick look at question number one, the belief that if language is not developed during a certain window of time, it will be impossible to develop at all. And so clearly the average grade here was fantastic, 1.75 out of 2. Standard deviation was 34.16%. Now the closer standard deviation is to 0, the better. Closer is to 1, not so good. And so the lower standard deviation means that as a group, you all thought very similarly. And so that's what we want. Point biserial is just a correlation statistic that goes from 0 to 1. The higher the number, for example, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, the better. The lower than 0.5, not so good. Any negative point biserial is not a good thing as well. Discrimination index, that just says the high scores from low scores. How do the high scores compare to low scores? And here 50%, normal. And so the answer here, of course, is critical period hypothesis. Again, the belief that if language is not developed during a certain window of time, so the key is window of time. Please keep in mind the following. Critical period hypothesis, it's a hypothesis. Many research studies have actually examined this critical period, both from the L1 perspective and the L2 perspective, and they have not really found any major findings because all their findings seem to contradict each other. But something to keep in mind is that during this adolescent age between 12 and 15 tends to be an important period between moving from implicit learning to explicit learning. And so also context interacts with age. So if you're learning English as a second language, as opposed to English as a foreign language, that will play a role in this critical period hypothesis. So again, the belief that if language is not developed during a certain window of time, this is called the critical period hypothesis, but is it necessarily true? Not really. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Question number 2, the ZPD, zone of proximal development, refers to the concept that, and then people learn best through social interaction with an expert other. And majority of you got that correct. Standard deviation, 44.72%, that's not bad. Point biserial, again, above 0.50, we're doing good. Discrimination, 50%, nice. So this is a good item. This is correct. However, doesn't paint the full picture of what the zone of proximal development is. Remember, we can learn from somebody more capable than us, less capable than us, and also equal peers, right? And also within yourself. So the ZPD, remember, it's a metaphor, right? Please keep that in mind, a metaphor. And so think about your current teaching situation or your future teaching situation. When you identify a class, right? There are many children in the classroom, right? Each child has their own ZPD. And so as a teacher, we have to, quote, identify, right, each person's ZPD and then expand it. That's what it basically comes down to. Now remember, Vygotsky, way back in the day, was not looking at language learning when he was talking about ZPD. He actually was talking about how children interact with each other. Okay, but again, social interaction is important, but it's what happens in interaction that's even more important. Question number 3. The person associated with the theory of universal grammar. If you watch the video that I presented last week, I went through each of these major theoreticians and also talked about Chomsky. And you guys are all right. 15 of you said Noam Chomsky. Chomsky is associated with UG, which explains that input, or the language that is given to the learner, is all that's needed for language learning. That's it. Okay. Jim Cummins, great guy, very funny guy at University of Toronto. However, he discussed second language writing, and so he's not really in that sphere. Standard deviation, really closer to 0 than the other two, which means all of you think more similarly and you got this question correct. Point by serial, negative 0.02, that's not a good sign, but discrimination is 0.0. Question 4, acquisition and learning are the same process. Well, clearly that's false, right? We can learn anything anytime, but how you acquire a language, that's a whole different ballgame, right? And it's clearly, we don't need to discuss this because you all got it. So the standard deviation, of course, is 0 because you all think similarly. Average grade is 100%, and discrimination index is 0.00. Good job. Question 5. All languages follow the same set of rules with respect to phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Ooh, so this is a very interesting one. Standard deviation, we have 50%. Okay, so you kind of really don't think similarly, almost half and half. The point by serial is negative 0.06. Discrimination index is minus 25. Okay, so here there's an issue. Let me explain. Phonology, right? The sound system of human language and how one interprets and conveys meaning in the sound, right? Morphology are parts, pieces to words, right? Endings, for example, suffixes, prefixes, words are also morphological items. Syntax, the rules of word order, semantics, meaning, and pragmatics, the ability to interpret and convey meaning in context. If we only look at syntax, syntax is the rules of word order, right? So David likes Georgia Southern. David's the subject, like is the verb, S is the morpheme that adds to singular verbs, which includes third person singular verbs and nouns, right? To convey the simple present. Georgia Southern, the noun, subject, verb, object. Now, if I was speaking in Japanese, for example, Davido ga Georgia Southern o ga suki desu. David, subject, Davido. Georgia Southern, object, subject, object, ga suki desu, likes, subject, object, verb. So the verb in Japanese comes at the end. Therefore, all languages follow the same set of rules? Nope. I gave you one example in 2 different languages that had 2 different syntax. Therefore, false. Okay. So a way to also address these kinds of questions, right? With things like all, never, these extremes, you really have to, if you can think of an example that has that goes against the extreme, you know that question's incorrect. Question 6, select all the answers that apply. The term funds of knowledge refers to, and then you guys, here we go. The skills, knowledge, and resources students can access in their homes and communities. Perfect. Boom, 15, you got it. The belief that students from minoritized communities have valuable experiences and practices that are often overlooked in traditional school settings. Boom, 11, you got it. Awesome. 10 of you did choose a set of practices that teachers use in the classroom to connect to students. Not necessarily. That's pedagogical practices, not funds of knowledge. Okay. And here, standard deviation, 17.21, closer to 0, which means you all mostly think alike. Discrimination index, minus 8.34. That's because of the third item, right? A set of practices that teachers use in the classroom to connect to students. So overall, these items are pretty good. They're pretty strong. multiple choice for the following. And then we have this wonderful picture of a mother and daughter. Given the average timeline for English learner development, which of these events? And so on the folio, there was actually a description of what happens age by age. And so all you need to do is follow the age by age resource that was available, and you can answer these questions. So between ages 0 to 1, survival speech, arrival in English dominant environment, and also silent period. Please keep in mind though, the silent period is a Krashen theme, right? Silent period is not necessarily empirically proven at the moment. However, it is important. Okay, so it's one of those things about common sense. What about 2 to 4? Well, emergent literacy, tentative classroom speech regarding academics, and tentative social speech with peers. So as you get older, more speech is utilized, in essence. And finally, between 5 to 7, social fluency is expected, and academic fluency is also expected. Please keep in mind also that although these are the correct choices, this will interfere between different contexts, meaning ESL context, English as a second language context, as such as in learning English in Georgia, is going to be different than learning English while in mainland China or while in Japan. The context will interact with the age and how much input is provided to the learner so that they can go through these different developmental stages. Developmental stages is still a hot topic debate in second language acquisition. Clearly, the L1, we know how those developmental stages work. We are very clear in how one learns their first language. We are not very clear in how one learns a second language exactly, or how one acquires a second language exactly, but we are close. So those are different learning theories quiz. Overall, all the items are clear. A few hiccups here and there, but I hope I was able to explain any questions you had. If you have any more questions for me about any specific item, email me, let me know, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.